Hello, and for the last time, welcome to COVID Confessions. Finishing out the podcast, I interview Kai Wangan, and I think we could have done a better closing interview. Kai had a lot of interesting things to say, and the conversation was just very pleasant. We say this at the end of the episode, but I want to say thank you right now for listening, whether you came here as a student of UMA or if you found this podcast and decided to try it out. We really appreciate you listening to the podcast, and we hope you learned something from our guests. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy the last interview of COVID Confessions. All right. Hi.
Hi.
I am here today with my friend, Kai. Hi, Kai.
Hi. Never heard from me before.
Never heard from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be asking myself questions.
Nope. First question, age old, name, pronouns.
Oh, age old. I thought you were asking me for my age.
No.
I'm 18.
Nope. Name,
No,
pronouns, relation to the school system.
Yeah, so my name is Kai Wangan, but I go by Kai. My pronouns, she, her. And my relation to the school system is I go to school a lot, all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, I have for 15 years. I went to preschool. So, and then I'm going off to college, and that'll be however long. So I'm a student. And maybe, hopefully, in the future, I'll come back as maybe a teacher or something. Yeah.
All right. Well, before the pandemic, how were you doing in school?
I was doing pretty well. I was doing fairly well. Prior to the pandemic, I think my middle school years, I was having a lot of trouble in 6th grade. I went to open world learning, or OWL. I didn't do super well there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to UMA, and I kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
Or here. We're in the building, so. Yeah, no, I did pretty well. I've always done pretty well in school. I was very active in clubs and activities prior to the pandemic. Like, every single day, I would be at school doing something, from, like, Otter News to art club to theater to, like, student government, and, like, just a ton of things. And then always, like, looking for times to sort of help out in the classroom, or finish my work early and, like, help other people, or just, like, take some time to go check in with some other teachers, because I don't know, I guess
Yeah.
I just wanted to fill my time. Yeah.
During that time, how are your interactions with, like, peers and staff and teachers?
Yeah, I still am. I feel really lucky. I've gotten a lot of great teachers and a lot of great friends and a lot of great peers, who, like, I'm not necessarily close with, but I get along with. I've worked with a lot of people in the grade. I think that's a unique part of being, like, 27 people. Like, you get to work with everyone in some capacity, and you get to know them really well. And I did that. I also got a lot of chances to interact with the younger grades. Mm-hmm. And so, like, even this year's, like, 7th graders know me, and they're so sweet. They're always like, Kai, and they wave me down in the hallways. Super adorable. Yeah, I don't know. I've always been a bigger community person. I interact a lot with a lot of people.
You do.
Whether or not, and often, like, people will come up to me and be like, "Hi, Kai, how are you?" And I won't remember who they are. But I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you." And, I get a lot of that. I have a horrible name to face memory. So, but yeah, I was very active in, I don't know, community sort of engagement opportunities. And yeah, my relationship with teachers, I've had a lot of great teachers. I've had maybe a handful that I didn't get along with, or had a lot of problems with, is maybe a better way of saying it. Same thing with, like, admin, but a lot, the majority of teachers I've had have always been super great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. When COVID kind of came around, what were some of the ways that it affected your school experience? Like, how you're performing in school and your interactions with the people around you?
Yeah, I guess I guess a little bit before the spring break, I think we had a week off of school, and then we had 2 weeks of spring break. And so I think the week before, we all like got that first extra week. I remember just having so many conversations during that week of like, oh, I heard some schools are shutting down, and I heard like activities are being paused, and I just remember so vividly like our group having conversations like, how would they shut down a school? Like, they're not going to do that. And then fast forward 3 weeks, and we're like trying out Zoom, and I think that first kind of, I guess it was the last quarter of like 9th grade, almost, maybe a little more or less. But
well, because the spring break is like usually our halfway point between the semester.
So I guess more than a quarter, but yeah, no, it was interesting. I did pretty well for that end of 9th grade. You know, it was a new experience, but I didn't mind it so much because I was like, oh, well, it's gonna end. It didn't end. But, you know, I finished out the school year pretty well. Do you want me to go into the next year?
Go as far as you want.
Yeah, so 10th grade? Yeah, 10th grade. 10th grade started. You know, I'll just talk and then we'll figure it out after. I wasn't always super happy to be at home. And my parents are split, and so we would be switching back and forth. We ended up changing our schedule for school to match our summer schedule, which is like week on, week off kind of. There was a lot of just like uncertainty, and I wasn't feeling so great, but I was excited to be back doing work. And I think I was good for like maybe the first half of first semester. Like, I was doing really good. I actually preferred a lot of the work methods that they gave us. And like the options we had working from home, because you know, I could choose when I did my work, and I could wake up later, and then I could like email my advisor Michelle, and I'd be like, hey Michelle, I am doing schoolwork right now, and it would be like 11, and you know, I wouldn't have to get up at like 8 a.m. sharp, and that worked. That worked and still works really well in my favor. I tend to wake up late and work late, so like that portion was good, and then it kept going. And for me, sometimes my family life is turbulent, and so suddenly being stuck at home, you know, I wouldn't say like trapped, but like in close quarters with your family a lot of times, like all the time during the day, it was an experience. It wasn't like bad all the time necessarily, but there were definitely like moments where we like fought, or, you know, things weren't perfect. Personally, I know, like over that whole time, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. But I think at the time my brother Logan was just starting like preschool. And I don't know if you've ever tried to make a 4-year-old sit down in a chair to Zoom call with his teacher and friends, but it doesn't go as well as you would maybe think. Usually they're like hanging out of the chair and like running around, and their teacher's like, hey, I can't see you in the Zoom, like, can you come over here? And you have to like wrestle them back in the chair. So I remember helping out in some of those ways, and like at my dad's in particular, we didn't have like walls necessarily between us while we were doing Zoom meetings, and so like I would be having a Zoom meeting and Grace would be having a Zoom meeting at the same time. Grace is my sister, and we were in the same room, and so like we had to do like a weird thing where sometimes I was muted and like I couldn't talk in class because Grace was busy talking to her class. And then I would try to like input when there were moments of silence from like what she was doing, but it was awkward to get around. And I guess but we managed. Kind of moving forward from that like first semester or first half of the semester, I started like failing a little. Not failing, I started like declining pretty rapidly. I didn't feel like I was very supported, with a multi-child household, with two multi-child households, and then like, my parents are mostly healthcare workers. Yeah. And so they were out all the time, and then they would come back, and it was really weird because we'd be like, can we hug each other? Like, you just worked with patients all day who like had COVID. Like, what are we supposed to do with that? And so we like separated laundry, and you would have to like shower before you interacted with anyone, and it was awkward. I think at some point we kind of gave up. We were like, if we catch COVID, we're gonna catch COVID, because like, how can you not with two people who like work ambulance, ER, and then another family who's like working with multiple elderly people, and like they're just like, you have to hope you kind of get lucky, because like you could take all the precautions and you could still hear like people were getting COVID and they didn't know how. And so I think second semester I finished going downhill really quick, hit rock bottom, and then almost failed all of my classes. I guess my mental health kind of was rapidly declining, and with a lot of time to kind of think. I had a hard time. It was fairly difficult, and I remember it got to a point where I was like sitting alone at like midnight, just being like, oh my god, it's like a Monday or Tuesday, and I have like multiple days of school left, and I'm not even there, and like I can't talk to anyone. We have like our weird online Discord channel, but like
oh god,
but like over there I'm like trying to be an admin and like a leader, and I'm not interacting with my peers in like a friend way. I feel like I'm in charge of something. And like people were coming to me, and they were like, I shouldn't name names, but there were quite a few people who were like within our grade who were reaching out to me and were like, I'm not okay. Like, can you support me? And I was over here like trapped in my house, and these people were telling me like really concerning things, and I'd be like, I can give you some hotlines. I can like help you look for some programs. I can help you this way. And that ended up like taking a really big toll on me after a while, because it was like, I'm helping everyone else, but as soon as they don't need anything, there's like an end to our exchange, because there were like no further connections. And so I think COVID gave me a lot of time to like sit and think and reflect. And I think, like I said, I got to this point where it was like early week. And I was like, is there even a point anymore? And I was like, I don't even think that I want to do good in school. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't care about the grade. I don't care about like the work. I want to be there, and I want to be interacting with these people and making connections. And I was like, I hate myself. Like, I really want to be with other people, so that I don't have to be with myself. And I think that was the turning point in kind of like my mental health journey, because I was like, oh, I don't want to hate myself. I want to be able to sit in silence and feel peaceful. And feel like content with who I am. And so, I think I got it there. I was talking to Jocelyn, who was the social worker, and we started having regular meetings after that, and that was helping. And it was a long journey, and I still almost failed all my classes. But like very last minute, I was like, hey, I need help. My mom kind of helped me reach out to some teachers. Yeah, and Michelle was so sweet. Michelle helped me like troubleshoot and was also reaching out to teachers on my behalf when I was telling her like, "Hey, I'm too anxious to like send this email." Like I had emails drafted,
Yeah.
but I like physically couldn't get myself to press the send button because I was so afraid of asking. And I got really lucky, and there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, it's okay." And now I think I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
It's definitely still hard to be like, "Hey, some family stuff is happening and I can't do my work. Like I can't sit and do this." But I've gotten better, and still in therapy, but like we're on to new problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was a journey is what I mean.
Yeah. What kind of support did you receive from school staff during COVID?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I really relied on Michelle, who was my advisor, like heavily. But also I had classes with like all wonderful teachers, and they were all super kind and caring. And they worked to reach out to me constantly, and they were like, "Hey, I noticed you didn't do this assignment. What if instead you did like half of it and then send it to me?" I didn't always take that opportunity because I wouldn't say I'm a completionist, but if I didn't finish the work, I didn't feel like I should turn it in. So a lot of those like opportunities I personally chose not. I just like didn't take, but they were still there offering that. And yeah, and I think Mr. Nagel was I almost failed his art class, and I've never failed an art class. Like it's how do you fail an art class? Sorry. That was like my thought process. My thought process was like, how do I fail an art class? Like what am I doing? But Mr. Nagel was so nice, and he was like, he just kept pushing deadlines for me. He was like, "Sure, the first project, you know what? Do it at the last week." Like he was just, like he just kept pushing things back for me, and he was so patient. In terms of like admin, I didn't feel a lot of support from a lot of admin. I also felt a lot of support from paras, though. They were, like, showing up for Zooms in classes that they weren't even necessarily supposed to be. Not, like, supposed to, but they were, like, there when they didn't have to be. And I remember Michelle and I think Hauer at the time, they both created, like, a math group outside of the regular teaching times to kind of help me and who were 11th graders at the time, because I was in a math ahead. And actually I did pretty well in math, all considering. Like online, that format really worked well for me, and getting help and having that like meeting set up where I could like go to my private like breakout space, and then like someone would come around every now and then and be like, "Hey, what do you need help with?" That was like really individualized, and I appreciated that. Again, we reached out to admin multiple times, and we like, I say we, I mean like myself and my family, and we never got a response. And we never got results. But then we turned to Michelle, and Michelle would get responses for us, or like, Michelle would figure it out. And yeah.
Were there ways you wish that the school could have supported you better?
It's a really difficult question, because for me, I think there's always things you could do better, but I'm also, I don't want to be like super judgmental when I wasn't the one in power, I guess. Like, but I do wish, I wish that like admin and staff were getting the support they needed, because I think a lot of times they would come to class and they would be confused, or they would be like, "I don't know if I'm allowed to assign you this," or like, "I don't know if I'm allowed to push this date." out further, or if I'm allowed to even put a date on this for when it's due, and that made everything, all the more uncertain. And I wish that maybe admin had communicated with them a little more proficiently, and also with like families. But in terms of like, I mean, I think the teachers all went out of their way to do things that weren't necessary at all, and that isn't just at our school, but at all the schools. And so, that was really impressive, and I'm very grateful to all of them.
Yeah,
hope that answered it.
Good. After the social isolation and distance learning, how do you feel like COVID has kind of affected you even now?
Yeah, this is really weird, but I think I really needed that like space to kind of reflect. And so, it got worse. It gets better. It comes in waves, but I think overall it was really good for my mental health to like actually sit down and be like, why do I feel these things? Why do I have constant nightmares? Why am I so afraid? Why am I having panic attacks every week? Like, yeah, I think in that way, like I still have a lot of anxiety or like depression or like, but like I'm very clearly reminded like, oh, it was worse, and I'm definitely moving forward. I think aside from that, I mean, I was very lucky. I either never got COVID or was never symptomatic, and we never caught it. So
definitely.
There's still like that fear of like, if I get COVID, what if I bring it home? But the kids and my whole family got COVID, like except for me and maybe I think my brother. One of my siblings like also didn't get COVID, but like, I mean, we have immunocompromised people at home, and like, so I guess to some degree my fears are like soothed a little bit because they made it through COVID for like one time, so they'll probably be fine the second time, right? But like, that fear does like still kind of bother me and like persist of like, oh, I'm going into a store, like, I really don't want to touch door handles. Or, like, I desperately don't want to touch the carts because, like, I know they're sanitized, but what if it's not enough? And, like, there's a lot of that sort of fear. And, like, I'd rather just go in and grab, like, 5 things with my arms and then carry them out instead of, like, grab a basket, Like, I don't know. A lot of little things. I think for the positive side, whenever I start feeling sick, I'm like, oh my god, I can mask. And people won't think I'm crazy or like think I'm gonna go rob a store. Like, I can put on a mask now, and I think that was a really good addition to kind of, I don't know, society. China and a lot of other Asian countries do that anyway. Either from like air pollution or for like public safety. I think we should do it more in the U.S.
We should.
But, some people think it violates their constitutional rights. So, to each their own. But I also noticed that I was, like, less sick. And then we started taking the masks off. And this year I've been sick multiple times. And so, I don't know. Kind of interesting. I don't know. Those are just some ways that it's kind of like, I don't know, affected how we think about things. I think in terms of school, I think teachers are a lot more aware of like how deserving they are to be paid more, and they deserve so much more respect and pay and time and influence than they're like given. So their voices should hold a lot more weight than what we give to them. And I think it also changed how some of the staff deals with parents. Like we have parent outreach people, like that's their job. Their job is to communicate with parents and staff and kids, and that's really cool. That's that's probably something we should have been doing before. I don't know if that's unique to our school, but we should also be like including more social work, and that's a thing that that's a big push right now. In terms of like COVID aftermath that I've been reading about, a lot of schools, aside from teacher pay, are also saying they need money for social workers because their work was so important. Yeah. And it was highlighted during the pandemic, but it's not limited to that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of moving on from the kind of entire COVID piece, let's go to reflection.
Yeah. Well, there's no getting away from COVID for our project.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We have chosen this.
Yeah.
How was doing this? How was working on this project for you?
Stressful.
Yeah.
But like I said, to you, if you or in like your advisory the other day, like, stressful, but like not necessarily in a bad way. It's just like meeting deadlines and meeting people and having a professional but friendly tone and carrying a conversation and asking questions where you can and taking a rejection of an answer. So like if someone doesn't want to answer, you have to move on, and like that's
it keeps you going.
Yeah, I would say my people skills have improved wildly over high school.
Yeah.
But this definitely tested that, and I think it was really helpful to be able to, first of all, like sit down and talk to people and hear their sides of or like their experiences. But secondly, it really helped in my head, like the idea that there are adults and people who are willing to sit down and talk with someone younger it just kind of like blew my mind. Honestly, I didn't think we were going to get any adults who were like, yeah, I want to talk to you. Because for me, in my head, it was like, well, I still see myself as a kid in a lot of ways. And,
definitely.
And like, I was like, no one's going to take two kids seriously when they're going out and asking big questions. And so like, but everyone was super respectful and super great to talk to. And, it was stressful, but in like a progressive way where I felt like I'm doing something and I'm excited for this project and I want to showcase this. And that's not always something that you find in schoolwork. So I'm happy that this project turned out to be that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. From all of the interviews that we've done, which one or which ones would you say you learned the most from?
Yeah, I think content-wise, I learned the most from Jody. Yeah. Because I didn't really know what the role of a principal was, period. I said earlier, but I've never had great experiences with principals in the past. And so, like, meeting a principal and listening to Jody kind of, like, talk in about something that wasn't Magic the Gathering, like, which is the only other thing I've talked to her about. Like, it was super cool to see that professional switch flip and to hear, like, all of these problem solving and solutions and, like, it was really inspiring. In terms of, I guess, I really appreciated when Erin came in, because, I hadn't worked with Erin any more than 5 days, like spread out over months, like, but she was still totally willing to come in and talk and give us a lot of personal notes. And I think she's a really impressive person because I didn't have necessarily a set mentor. I just kind of showed up to the school and they just paired me with people. And so like, it really feels unique to have formed that like social relationship in such a short amount of time, and seeing her work with kids was incredible. I I think, she was really, really good with kids, and she was really good at, like, middle schoolers are rowdy, but she was good at going with the flow and, like, redirecting instead of just being like, hey, you can't do that. It was, okay, you want to do something? Let's do it this way. And then it's like, oh my gosh, that was such quick problem solving. Like, one kid was like running laps around the classroom, and she was like, okay, so you have a lot of energy, I see. So I'm going to give you a wiggle stool. You're like, because you're distracting kids, but I'm going to give you a wiggle stool, and I'm going to give you like 4 fidgets.
Yeah.
And this kid sat quietly for the rest of the class, and I was like, that was so much better handled by one person than
absolutely.
I've seen. Like, I've seen classrooms where like there's one problem kid and like 3 adults try to work with them, and it just doesn't work. And so it was really fascinating to see Erin in person, and then to follow up with her and know that she kind of like knew who I was and was taking interest in the things that I was doing. So it was also just really nice to connect with Libby.
Yeah, that was so nice.
Because she used to be our language arts teacher for a really long time, and I worked with her in theater as like her like student director or co-director or whatever.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know, like stage director and whatever. Like I used to work with her often. So it was nice to see her and be like, oh, time's passed, but like you're still willing to connect with me. All of those were like educational, but in kind of different ways than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then always thanks to Mr. Johnson, who we might talk to, but like thanks to Mr. Johnson for sending us all those articles and stuff from like NPR, and like it was super cool. And I read them, and I appreciated what he was doing and how he was trying to support our project, and that was super great. And so
absolutely.
That was not one guest, but I feel like I should say awesome. A lot of thanks because we got lucky.
That's awesome. We did get lucky.
We got lucky, and we're surrounded by good people.
Yeah. Did this entire project kind of change how you view your COVID experience and the experience of those around you?
Yeah, it was really unique. I wouldn't say I'm usually like a self-centered person, but COVID felt like a very personal and single experience.
Yeah.
For kind of everyone, I think. But listening to, whether like Libby, who's like our old teacher, or like talking to, anyone else, like it was just, I guess it was like comforting to know that there were other families who were struggling similarly. Like, with me, like trying to help the younger kids or trying to troubleshoot like tech problems, like for my siblings, like missing class due to that. Like, I didn't think I was the only one doing that, but it was nice to hear like that there were people who were aware of it and trying to work through that problem, and that there were more people than I had originally like thought that experienced similar things. And I think that really took some pressure off of like what I thought COVID should have been, which is like a study hall. you know? Like it took it from being like, well, I just didn't do enough to, like, everyone's struggling, and some people are struggling similarly, and they're doing similar to me. Like, so I'm not like losing or, like I'm not like failing. Yeah,
definitely. What were some kind of like high and low parts of your COVID times, or not COVID times, but the project rather?
Project for COVID. Yeah. Highs. Working with you was a great opportunity. Meeting with people just in general was great. I think I got a lot of professional kind of like I wouldn't say professional because it was still pretty casual, but like I got a lot of professional feeling experience while working while like shadowing, like I didn't like dress up, but I was like more than casual. Like right now I'm wearing a sweater. I didn't do that, you know. I was putting on like nice dresses or tops and like trying to look mature or like older or professional. And you know, it was interesting to be like, how much skin is too much skin? Like especially in a school. And that was interesting. I appreciated that experience. I think that was a high for me because I would show up to the school and the kids would be like, "Oh my gosh, you look so professional," and it would be so sweet. And they were like reaffirming, and they didn't even know it. So, yeah, I guess lows. I really didn't like sending out those initial emails to people for asking them for their participation. It was like the first 2 or 3, you know, like the first 1 or 2 I sent, I was like, oh, no one is going to talk to us. Like, why am I doing this? And then I got to the 3rd one, and I think that was Libby, and I had a whole big meltdown about like, hey, oh my gosh, like she changed her name. Like, what if I'm reaching out to the wrong person?
Yeah.
But after that, it was like, oh, like even if they don't respond, like, I'll know I tried. Like, we did have people who didn't respond, and that's, like, no, like, bad or, like, ill will towards them. Like, they're busy. They're teachers. They're staff. They have... Of course they wouldn't want to give up their weekends, but, like, to the people who did, like, it could never hurt to just try. And so I guess... After those first 3 emails, I was like, oh, this is easy. And then I just copy-pasted it, like, edited, like, the emails individually to, like, personalize them. And I sent them out. And then, and then I kind of got over it. But those first few emails of, like, oh, I need to reach out to people, but I don't know how. That was nerve-wracking. That was probably the lowest point of this project. I was like, I wish I had picked something easier than talking to all these people. But... No, I overall I feel very satisfied with our project, and I think, you know, even like the blooper moments were funny, and so they weren't like lows. But
is there anything that you wish that we could have done differently?
Like I said, I like to think that there are things that, like, you could do to improve anything. So I think in this case, what I'm thinking about, sorry, I keep making the table creak, but I really wish we had hit the 15.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but in my head, or like my brain just keeps going, and it's like, get to 15, get to 15, get to 15. Like, at first it was get to 10, and now we're, like, almost at 10, and it's like, get to 15, and, you know, I'm just ambitious, maybe might be the right way to put it. Ambitious, like,
You belong in Slytherin.
Yeah, I want more. I want to keep going. I want to keep pursuing. I want to, but, you know, I don't have necessarily the emotional energy or the time, because I'm at school for, like, the whole day, and then... so I'm happy and I'm satisfied with what we're doing.
Bless you.
Thank you. But yeah, I also kind of wish that we had done more and like talked to more people, and if I could go back and, you know, things were a little calmer in my personal life, I would have I think I would have encouraged myself to like reach out to more people and be like, hey, like, come talk to us, to, like, everyone that we thought of, instead of just, like, the select few we thought we could handle. We thought we could handle, and then who responded. Like, I wish I had, like, sent more follow-ups and been like, hey, you know, we only have this month, but, like, please respond. Like, it might sound desperate, but, like, you know, I guess that's just where my brain goes with it. But, again, I'm very satisfied, and there was, like, no doubt, or like, I don't know, this sounds kind of weird, but when you work on, when I've worked on big projects in the past, I kind of, like, get resentful a little bit towards, like, people I work with at the end. And, like, not in a bad way, or not like, oh, I hate you, but it's just, like, it gets tiring to work with the same person. But I think it's really unique that I get to work with you, and I don't feel that
Yeah.
I'm just like excited to see how it turns out, instead of like, God, I wish Keat had done more, or I wish I had done more, or like Keat put too much on me. I'm like, Keat did just the right amount, and I'm doing the right amount, and you know, that's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we're kind of coming to a close on what is, depending on what order we put these in. This might be the last one, or
I'm
it might be
hoping
the
mine
one
is the
that
last.
I did. But the two questions, you can answer either one or both.
Yeah.
The first one, of course, being if you could go back and tell your younger pre-COVID self something, and then the outlook on the future.
Yeah. I'll do both. You
All
did
right.
both. I have to match you.
That's a challenge.
I have to match it. No. If I could go back, you know, I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I would give myself advice." No, I would just go back and I'd be like, huh, "Good luck." You know, and
Yep.
like,
there's not much else you can do
no,
there.
exactly. Like, I genuinely feel like I would go back and I wouldn't tell myself anything, but I'd be like, you know, good luck. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like the younger me would go, oh, that means something's gonna happen, and that's enough of a warning. So like, I feel like that's enough. I would just
enough
just say
of a
good
warning
luck.
for you to just like preemptively hunker down.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like get ready, but I wouldn't want to change anything like super drastically. And you know, obviously, I didn't want to fail those or almost fail those classes, but on the other hand, you know, I think it forced me to grow in some ways, and
Yeah.
so I wouldn't like stop it. The second kind of question, how's my outlook? At this very moment, not too pleasant. However, I do feel like I will do better and have more opportunities to succeed going into college.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm headed. That's the direction I chose. And so you know, as I kind of move on, I'm excited. I know that's not necessarily COVID related, but you know, I'm so happy that I get to close this kind of like chapter of my, I guess, high school experience with like wrapping up everyone's experiences with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously like things will continue, but like the bigger stuff, I'm glad that I'm leaving things not unsaid, like, and that we gave people a space to say things that they maybe wouldn't have, or yeah. So I think I'm thinking positive. You know, in terms of like how well are we going to deal with another pandemic, or like how are we even going to finish dealing with this one? Like, I don't feel super positive about that, but I think we'll get through it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like my life and the people around me, I'm feeling
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
Well, it's been amazing.
It's been nice seeing you, bud. Pew pew. No. No. Yeah. Now you have to die. You know too much.
Yep.
No. Yeah. Super happy, and thank you for interviewing me, even though you've been stuck with me and you've heard all this before.
And for anybody listening to this, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
This is important to
It's
us.
been a dream. It's been a literal dream project for me.
Yeah.
And
me too.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm into podcasting, but this was a good experience.
It's a new experience.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.